Welcome to the Music Festivals podcast. This is the show that helps you get to know music festivals, festival venues, and campgrounds before you go. I'm your host, Neighbor Nate, and I'm glad you're in the neighborhood. Welcome back, neighbors, to episode number 34 of the Music Festivals podcast. This is the show that helps you get to know music festivals, festival venues, and campgrounds before you go. And as always, I am your host, Neighbor Nate. A few weeks back, we began our conversation around Hookahville by talking with longtime band member of Acoustic Hookah 2.0 era, Ed McGee. Today, we're continuing back down the road to Hookahville with a conversation with the man who began it all, the band, the festival, the community of fans, and he has been a key figure in keeping all of this going now for over 3 decades. He's been a huge influence on how and why I came to love jam bands and bluegrass and all the music that has shaped my life. And he's a maestro on the keys, a brilliant songwriter, and he plays a mean-ass rhythm guitar. I'm delighted to welcome Dave Katz to the show. Hey, Dave.
Hey, thanks for the great intro.
I'm really glad I didn't screw
Very
it up
flattering.
and get it on one take. So, no, I really mean it, man. Like, and I said this to Ed too, but you guys have made such a huge difference for me musically, and like opened up all kinds of new doors. It's interesting because I backed into the Dead because of Acoustic Hookah, right? Like I never was into the Dead in high school, so I have a lot to thank you guys for. So yeah,
I kind of backed into the Dead myself.
no shit. How did that happen?
I joined a band in Columbus in like I think 1989 maybe, called Local Color.
Okay.
Kind of helped start it, but I joined 2 guys who were already playing together, and they were doing a lot of Grateful Dead stuff. I didn't even know who the Grateful Dead was at the time. I just started playing a bunch of their songs that I had never even heard, and that's how I kind of got into it.
Yeah, it's amazing that like their shelf life has been so long, because a lot of people I know never got to see the Dead, never were into it when Jerry was still here. And it's just a testament to what those guys did and how they changed everything. But you guys did that too, right? So like I wanted to start off. So this Hookahville is really about celebrating the different eras of the band. And I think the Dead had many different eras as well. 1.0. So if people are in the hookah crowd, they know about 1.0, and that really started with you and John Mullins. How did you first come to meet and play music with John?
It was basically, I was literally walking down High Street in Columbus and could hear him playing in a basement bar on the South Heidelberg. I actually wrote a song about it called Fly. At the beginning of it, it's exactly what it says, and it's the absolute truth. I just kind of went down there, liked what I heard. It was kind of an open mic sort of thing, so I was able to play also. He kind of liked what he heard. We started over, it was an every Monday thing. So as I was going down there and started familiarizing with his songs and vice versa, we started playing with each other, and our voices worked really well together, and it literally grew out of that. Just people started sitting in with us, and Acoustic Hookah became what it was.
Yeah. Well, and I was actually listening to Fly yesterday as I was on the way back from dropping my camper off and whatnot. And it struck me too that song almost sounds like it was a letter, almost to John. And for those who are watching this and maybe don't follow Acoustic Hookah, we lost John a few years back, unfortunately. Was that a difficult song for you to write?
I don't know if difficult would be the right term for it. I've written a lot of songs that have like subject matters regarding things that I've lost in life, and I find it more to be a kind of a therapeutic thing to do in a way. So I don't know that it was that difficult. It just, when I wrote it, it became the right time to do it. I don't even know why that was either. Excuse me. I must have just been on I think I wrote it when I was down for a few months because I had a surgery on my shoulder, and I don't know, just flowed out more or less. It was actually, it was a song that came out very quickly. It was a one-nighter. It's like a one-night stand with my guitar, basically.
Right.
But I wouldn't say it was difficult expressing emotions, because there's some emotion in there that's very positive, and there's negative emotions in it also, which is the reality of the relationship that we had. and I have no problem being very real about my emotions in my songs or in everyday life. So no, it wasn't really difficult. It was just I felt like it needed to be done. I had another song called Change that was about him. That's a very different tone to it, and is more written with anger more than anything else. But to his credit, when he rejoined the band, it was the first song he wanted to play. So,
Shit. That's cool.
yeah,
That's cool.
but
yeah.
Not difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, I came into kind of the 2.0 era when I first learned of hookah, and I worked my way backwards into John's stuff, right? And Under Full Sail, which was 1991, I believe. Talk a little bit about that album. Talk a little bit about Under Full Sail and just the difference between the sound of you and John kind of taking the helm of that.
So, excuse me. Yeah, that album was. It was something that kind of came out of nowhere. There was a guy named Harlan Penn who was hanging out at a party in somebody's living room where John and I and Steve Fry, the original drummer, was playing like congas, and we were just doing a thing. And he heard us. He was like, "Hey, you want to go into the studio?" And we're like, "Sure, if you're paying, we'll go in the studio." And
Right.
We didn't really have a band at that point. We just had the three of us, and we had been playing with Steve and Cliff, the other two original members. On other nights, like at the South Heidelberg. So we went in and we didn't have a ton of songs at that point, and I don't really remember how we picked the songs, but I do remember that it was like a basement studio, 8-track studio. Yeah, it was. We were only playing so many songs at the time. I'm sure we had more songs than what was recorded on that, because it was probably 8 songs on there, maybe something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I actually have a copy right here, I could tell you, but
Right.
an unopened copy and signed.
Oh, nice.
But
nice.
Yeah, look.
That's cool. I got to see this.
Look at it.
Oh, that's fucking. It's a cassette tape. That's fucking nice. Yeah, nice.
That's what it came out on. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 9 songs. We probably didn't have a whole lot more than that, I'm guessing. But as with everything that's ever happened with Acoustic Hookah, there wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason to it, I don't think. It was kind of like, I think we put it together sort of the way we put together a set, which would be, hey, I'm going to do this song. What do you want to do after that? Okay, you can do that song. And then, then it'll be my turn and I'll do this song,
Yeah.
I think it more or less came like that.
That's interesting.
And of course it was titled Under Full Sail, which is the only song that John and I ever wrote together.
Yeah.
So that's on there, and that's where the title came from.
One of the songs that wasn't on that album, if I'm recalling right, was Hugoville, right? And I didn't realize that Hugoville was actually written a few years prior to the festival happening. What led up to? I wrote a song about this vision for a festival, and it actually became a festival. Talk a little bit about that.
I get the song itself isn't really written about a festival. It's written about an ideal society, more than that. Almost in a commune kind of way, although not completely a commune, but like just friendly people gathering together and living out in the mountains or out in the hills or whatever. And so it wasn't written specifically with the idea of it being a music festival. Then when we had the first Hookahville and called it that because it made sense anyways, it just so it was kind of like an egg before the chicken thing, I guess.
Yeah.
You can probably look at it that way or something along those lines. But yeah, it was definitely the song, and then the festival became what it was. And we adopted some of the no hassles or bad attitudes motto was already in the song. So it just kind of maybe it was dumb luck that it lent itself to being the festival as much as it did.
It evolved into like the manifesto for the festival. Like it kind of was the blueprint for this is how we want to come together. And it survived for a very long time,
Yeah.
So it's
still a good motto.
Yeah, I think so. The first festival was in 1994, and I got to see a video that Ed shared with me that was like a camcorder video, and I was watching it, and you had mentioned earlier like you didn't have a lot of songs in the beginning, and I noticed that there was a Sweeney acoustic solo set in the video.
Yeah.
So at the time, were you guys playing a lot of solo sets and in the actual shows?
Yeah, that was I mean, I wouldn't say we did it every show. It's hard to remember, but we did that pretty often where instead of taking a set break, like we would just, everybody would leave except say me first, and I would play a few songs, and then somebody else would come in and that would be my break after I was done, and eventually we'd just roll it, and it would end up being 3.5 or whatever hours of music solid. So yeah, Steve used to do acoustic solo sets. It was pretty cool.
It was the first time I actually saw him sing, which was crazy. Like I'd never seen him sing before, but that was amazing.
Yeah.
How did one of the things that's become synonymous with acoustic hookah, but also Hookahville, is the symbol of the schwa. Where did that come from? I've always been curious about that.
So that came with naming the band. When John and I were sitting in a living room of a place that I lived in Columbus back in, I guess, 91, when it became evident that we were going to have to come up with a name for a band, we were just in there, getting high and just tossing out names. And maybe a band can be a very, that's kind of like the song you asked about. It can happen like that. I mean, you say something and boom, hey, yeah, that's the name. And other times you got to kind of flesh things out. And what happened there was I had a hookah that I brought back from a trip I took to Egypt when I was a teenager. And it was a brass hookah. And it was sitting up on the mantle, and kind of looked up and was like, hey, brass hookah, that'd be a cool name for a band. But the brass part didn't really work because you would think that we'd have horns and things like that. So, but we liked the word hookah. And so we were playing around with things that worked well with hookah. And acoustic hookah sounded great when it came out. I was like, yeah, that's it. But again, acoustic, you would think maybe we're non-electric. But the actual definition of the word acoustic has nothing to do with electricity. It's sound as it's heard, like the acoustics of a room. So we decided to spell it phonetically, and that's where the schwa comes from. It's the phonetic symbol for the sound up.
Yeah.
So we just went with it. That's what we did. We spelled it phonetically.
The number of people that I know, myself included, that have a schwa name tattooed with their body is kind of crazy, right? But yeah, that first Hookahville, I believe, was that your farm in Frederickstown, or was it somewhere that you were living at the time? And then I heard a story.
I mean, it wasn't technically a farm, but it was affectionately called the farm. It was woods. Myself and Jeff Spencer, who at the time was the manager of the band, we lived together out in the woods in Fredericktown, Ohio. And basically Hookahville grew out of the desire to just like play an outdoor show. And it was literally the first one. There wasn't a plan of, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to call it Hookahville. We're going to have it. We're going to do it, all the time. We just figured, hey, the idea was, let's play out at my place. And the fee from the band to us in order to host it was, I believe, it wasn't much. It was a few $100s so we could get a pump for our well, so we could have running water. Yeah. That was basically the fee. So we just kind of had to call it something. We called it Hookahville, and it wasn't until after that weekend, when it went really well, surprisingly well, that we decided to, hey, let's do this again later in the year. So the first one was on Memorial Day weekend. We're like, hey, why don't we do it on Labor Day weekend? So we did that. And then for years, it was always on those weekends.
Yeah. And that's, and it stayed that way for as long as I can remember, at least. You mentioned Jeff Spencer, so I've heard a lot of stories about Hefe in conversations leading up to this, and this upcoming Hookahville is going to celebrate Hefe's memory. How did you guys first meet? Clearly, you were spending time together, but do you remember that?
No, I don't remember exactly how we met, but we were living together in Columbus along with another guy before we bought the property out in Fredericktown. So it was before that. I would be guessing that I met him at the South Heidelberg, because I met most people at the Hookah shows at the South Heidelberg. That was pretty, or else I met him through somebody who went to those shows, but it was probably, I'm sure I met him through the band. It wasn't somebody I knew outside of the band.
So he came on as the manager, and when I was talking to Ed had a funny story about his kind of first interview / conversation with Jeff. But that was, once Ed joined, that kind of signified the 2.0 era, and Hookahville keeps going. So how did Ed coming into the band and the changing of personnel from 1.0 to 2.0 like change the sound for you?
It changed the sound a lot, actually. So, Acoustic Hookah obviously is everybody in it and the sound that everybody brings to it. But any band is kind of built around the songs and songwriting. And John and I had a kind of, our songs work together in a specific way. It worked together in a specific way. It's hard to say how that was exactly, but losing basically one of two main songwriters and bringing in somebody else is going to change the dynamic of the sounds and stuff like that, and how shows flow and things of that nature. Ed's songwriting versus John's songwriting was very much to the point. It was very rock and roll based, blues rocky kind of based music for the most part. I mean, he threw different things in there at different times, but that would have been what I would say is the basis of what his songs sound like. And then Ed's are more, they had more, I don't know how to put it. They went like this a lot more. You know what I mean? Like you'd be here and then he would drop into a completely different feel and tone to his song and bring it back. It just, that was a very different sound. He was a very different guitar player. He's a different rhythm player, a different lead player on the times that he took leads and stuff like that. And our voices sounded different than John's and mine did. They still sounded, we could still sing harmonies together well, but it had a totally different tone to it. So it was different. Saying how it was different is hard to say, but one thing that was the same in a way is both of them lyrically were very much storytellers more than I am. I think I always wrote and continue to write more from a reality standpoint of things that have happened in my life, or the way I feel about things, or just like I used to have, and I probably still do, this kind of like pattern of writing about things like, if it makes you feel good, that's what you should do. Don't worry about what other people say. And I have this like kind of message sort of thing. Not that I'm trying to drill it home, but it's how I feel. And they are very much, they were better wordsmiths than I am, I think. Or just different style anyways. But theirs were much more similar than mine. Or that was something that was similar versus their music not really being similar, if that makes sense. But there were some similarities. I mean, there's some songs of Ed's that were very much like John's songs, like Quarterly and stuff like that. And it may have been the fact that Ed listened to a lot of hookah, and subliminally you gather everything you listen to, and it comes out in what you produce. So that probably helped things work really well, actually.
For me too, listening to you and Ed always, and again, I backed into the Dead, but it always reminded me of the same dynamic that Jerry and Bob had, right? When you hear somebody say that, what does that make you think? Like, how do you feel about that?
I can see that. I would also say that was similarly there with John, in a sense. And I am in no way, shape, or form comparing myself to Jerry Garcia, but usually when people say that, that's where they're seeing me on that side of that comparison, and Ed on the Bobby side. And there's a lot there that I would say is accurate as far as the dynamic went. I don't know how to expound on that, because it just was what it was, or people see it the way it is. I wouldn't say that we were looking to do that necessarily,
Okay.
but when you have a band that has two main songwriters, main lead singers, that's doing the jam band thing, and kind of moves between rock and roll and blues to psychedelia and some more, up-tempo bluegrass leading kind of stuff, you already have a lot of elements that are in the Grateful Dead, or were in the Grateful Dead. So, I mean, I can see why people would, have said that. I can definitely see that.
This era then leads to, it goes on for years, and it led to bigger and bigger Hookahvilles. And by 99, I think the estimates were about 15,000. I remember it would have been early 2000s. It was at Frontier, but it wasn't in the main pavilion at Frontier. But I just remember having this moment, standing there way in the back, looking at this sea of people. What was that growth like in terms of just your opinion of the festival that started, as a backyard, like, let's get together and have a party, and now there's thousands and thousands of people and it's a big production? How was that transition for you guys to go from point A to point B?
It was very smooth because there was no plan. It just happened. Everyone for a while just got bigger and bigger and bigger. It was easy in the sense that we weren't the only festival that existed, but we were kind of the only big festival that existed at that time, at least in the eastern half of the country, up till about, I think, 2000 or so. And a lot of other festivals eventually spawned off of Hookahville in a way. And that led to the diminishing crowd, and it could have been other reasons too, but it certainly, there were a lot of big money corporate kind of things coming in. But as it was getting bigger and bigger, it was just kind of a go with the flow thing, really. It was just, Hefe was kind of the person who worked along with, at that time we had a staff, and generally speaking, the staff worked on Hookahville. And that's what they did all year round, because there's two of them. It's a lot of work. So they were doing most of the work. So from a band standpoint, all we had to do is keep doing what we were doing and then show up at Hugoville and play for the most part. So it was very easy on our end. It was just like enjoyable. It was very freewheeling. I remember I look back and I used to get on a golf cart when there was 10, 12, 15,000 people coming, and I would take tickets. They call them miracles, right? Like free tickets. And I would just go up the line of people waiting to get in. And I would look for, generally speaking, license plates from the farthest places, and I would give them tickets. I literally saw license plates back then from I think every state other than like Hawaii and Alaska. So there were people coming from Washington State and, Arizona and California and Maine, and, they were coming from all over the place. So it was just like, it was pretty amazing. I mean, when I look back on it, it's almost more amazing that it happened than while it was happening. Because while it was happening, I was just like, hey, I guess this is how it goes. This is what happens. You just throw a party and it gets bigger and bigger. That's what happens. So.
What's crazy too is all that. I mean, even my first Hookahville, social media didn't exist then, right? And now if you look at it, that's how festivals are promoted and all that. All of that was word of mouth. It was people saying, wow, you got to check out this festival, and calling their friends in other states and whatnot.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's been at a lot of venues over the year, and particularly during that era. I think it was, I've been to them at Legend, at Frontier. Out of all the different venues that Hookahville has been at, what are some of your memories? What are some of the craziest situations, with being in a certain venue?
Yeah, wow. I mean, there's good situations and bad situations. I mean, the bad one, it's always easy to remember the bad ones, right? And that would be I kind of forget the one in St. Clairsville, Ohio. What was the name of that? It was Dover. But whatever the name of the place was, I know Leftover Salmon was there. I remember that. And I remember that, the cops came and they were raiding all the tents, and it was like shooting fish in a barrel, basically. That was bad. that was a bad time. I mean, we got through it somehow. And, I remember we tried to hire attorneys to represent everybody who got busted at the shows, and it was a real mess, but then there's the great, almost every place else was great. There's really not a lot of bad to say about it, because basically you're taking a venue, which in some cases, like Legend Valley, has a lot of infrastructure, and other times you're going to places like even Frontier Ranch, which basically had one like old bluegrass stage, and even places that didn't even have that and had basically nothing, and you're just creating a festival there. And there's not a lot bad that can go on. Unfortunately, the bad stems from what I would term as overzealous law enforcement. That's where the bad comes from. But outside of that, the people who come are very cool for the most part. I mean, you have times where people get a little too, fucked up, and then they're causing trouble and it has to be handled and stuff like that. But for the most part, the venues have always been great, and the venue owners are great. And I think we always go in not always knowing what's going to happen, but we leave with a good, a good experience and a good relationship with the owners. And I can't really think of much bad, but a lot of good.
Yeah. I remember, I forget, I think it was only there once, but it was at the ski resort, Alpine Valley, I think it was, or something. That was the same year that there was another bluegrass festival that I went there. But I always thought that was kind of a neat venue for Hookahville as well.
It was.
It was a lot of fun, and the way that the hill was, it just kind of made for a nice experience at the concert. So we go into the 3.0 era. So Ed and those guys, Ed and Johnny, leave the band, and there was some changing. There was a lot of people who joined in that era over the years. So that was when Nat came in to do some Mullen stuff, and Sarge joined. Talk a little bit about how you came to have Sarge come into the band, and what that transition was like.
Well, the first thing that happened was, I forget what they called it, was 1.0 Redux or something, because John was back in the band. I don't know if there was a title for that. And I think that lasted a few years, something like that. But then when that didn't work anymore, Sarge was somebody who had been a fan of the bands for a long time, so he was very familiar with all of our music already. We all some of us, I think, knew him better than others, but we were familiar with him and his work in playing with some other bands around Ohio. So it was a very easy transition. It actually, the actual transition was kind of crazy, because we were in the studio in Athens, Ohio, and I forget, it was to do Bridge. And first day in the studio was when John left the band, and which is the reason why basically every song on Bridge is are my songs, except I think there's two of Eric's songs, I believe, on there. Our drummer. I don't think we've talked about Eric, but
we haven't talked about Eric yet.
Right. So there's a couple of songs of his, I think, but that we had that day, maybe one other. I think it was just that day, and I think the next 2 days we were playing what was called Hookah in the Hills in the Athens area, and they're like, "Well, shit! Like, we don't have John, so what are we going to do?" And so we called him, meaning Sarge, as kind of a sit-in, which turned into kind of a test, a trial period, I should say. We were like, "Okay, you want to play with us this weekend?" He's like, "Yeah." Like, "Okay, so learn as many of the songs as you can." I think we might probably gave him a list of like a lot of songs, because it's 2 nights of material, and let's do it. And then if this, all works out and we do some shows and it works out, we'll talk about you joining the band. And he played and it worked out. He didn't have a lot of original material, so for a long time we were playing mainly my stuff, which is fine, but I definitely prefer, I don't want to do all my stuff all the time. It's I think that would really change the vibe of Hookah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's never been something that I was really interested in, or that I would imagine the band was interested in, the rest of the guys. So we worked him in. I think we were like, "But you got to write some more songs." We need some more stuff of yours to do. And he did. And he doesn't have the catalog the size of what Ed has or what John had. But it's enough that we can, integrate his stuff into the shows, and it still feels like an acoustic hookah show. As it always did. The ratio is still heavier me than it used to be, which is fine, but it's not all me, which is good. And but it was easy. Getting him in there was easy.
I've always liked the change of the dynamic when Sarge started writing and hearing those songs. Like, yeah, it still felt like acoustic hookah, but it kind of also felt in a different direction, like his own direction. And I've always really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, he's kind of sets in that like rock and roll thing, and then he's got this like groove thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you've got some songs that are I don't know what you'd call that. I don't have a name for the style that I think is accurate, but it's got a groove thing. He gets this like dancey groove thing going, which is cool. And then, I mean, to be honest, if you take, I don't want to say anybody's, but you take songs and then the rest of us play it, it becomes an acoustic hookah song. That's what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, and everybody adds in, I remember seeing you guys once at Woodlands, where Sweeney just kind of took over, right? Like, I forget what song it was that you guys were playing, but it was going and going. And all of a sudden Sweeney got this look on his face and he just started taking off. And I saw all the rest of you guys kind of look at Sweeney and then look at each other and, okay, let's go. And like, that's I think one of the things I've loved about it, is just, how it changes from time to time. I do want to mention Eric too. So ironically, the first time I met Eric, I was going to have him build a piece of furniture. Blew me away that on the side, he's this crazy like woodworker and does all this great stuff. Do all of it, like, what is hookah full time for everybody, or does everybody have, other than musical side projects, like what else do you guys do when you're not rocking out?
Sarge has his thing. He has his own business and he deals in hair products, like with salons and stuff like that.
Okay.
Matt, the bass player, he's into rehabbing houses.
Okay.
So he does that. Everything I do has to do with music.
Yeah.
I have no more skills. It's just music. but I do manage the band and book the band, and then I have my side projects and stuff like that. And Steve only plays music.
Okay, that's awesome. And I want to mention Nat too, because I think that was, what was it, a couple of years ago, he started coming in when you guys would play John's stuff, or at least stuff off of that era. And I have to say this because I think everybody, feels it, but like when you close your eyes, sometimes it's like he does John's stuff so well. What is that like for you, right? To have him be able to play John's stuff very much like, at least to me, it sounds like a lot like John did.
Yeah, I think it's really great. It's uncanny the way he sounds like John, but he does, and he it just works really well. It's nice that we can play John's stuff. I wouldn't want to play John's stuff and have me sing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I've done it like on a stream or something. I'll sing one of his songs or something, but it works much better with that type of voice. And so, I mean, it's just a big plus when we're able to do it, basically.
Yeah, and he always looks like he's having a hell of a good time when he's doing it too. So
I think he is.
Fun. Yeah. So we're coming up on the 60th version of this festival, which is crazy to me. I get around and I talk to a lot of promoters and I see a lot of festivals, and some of them have a lot of short shelf lives, right? It's hard to make it work. And yet you guys have 3 decades of doing this. And we're going to a new venue. So this is the first time for hookah at Roost on the River Music Center in Newark. How did you come to meet Devon White, and where was the decision made to go there?
Well, Devon's been hanging, I don't want to say hanging out. He's known about the band for a long time. I don't know when he first started seeing us. He is good friends with Steve Trickle, who owns Legend Valley, which is kind of right up the road from there. I mean, I met him again, like everybody else, through the band. I don't remember specifically when. He and I had been talking for a couple of years about the possibility of eventually doing it at his place. It just got to the point where it was the right time to do it. It's a venue that fits the festival now much better than Legend Valley, which is where we have been having it for the most part lately. Legend Valley is just, it's big. It was great when we were there and we had 15,000 people. It was perfect, and even with 6,000 people, it feels good. But the festival's not as big as it used to be. And at a really big place, you end up with, people having to walk a lot when it's not really that necessary and stuff like that. It'll be really nice to get it into a tight-knit sort of more family-like atmosphere. I'm really looking forward to it because it's going to, in my mind, it's going to bring it back to what it was at the beginning. And when I think of all of them, as great as it was to have a lot of people there and have these big shows, and there's nothing that will ever replace that in my mind. The ones that felt the best were the early ones. They just felt the best. There was something about it, something about feeling like you really knew everybody there, or that you could meet everybody while you're there. You know what I mean? There was something about that. And I don't know. Again, the big shows are great, and it's great on a lot of levels. It's just cool to be in front of that many people and do that kind of thing.
You were talking about how it's going to be, and I kind of, when I went and saw the venue, just so you guys out there, that was the first thing that went through my mind of, wow, this is going to be back to like being a camp out, right? Which I think is going to be great, right? Like it's going to be fantastic. They're also going to, so this one is in memory of Hefe. And I read a post on the Hookah Heads group from Jay Romero the other day, where they're going to do kind of a memorial session, right? And it sounds like that's going to give everybody a chance to kind of tell their stories of Hookahville. What do you think is going to come out of that in terms of just the stories that you're going to hear?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there are so many stories that I know about. I'm looking forward, I guess, to hearing ones that I don't know about. But
right.
Hefe was a great guy. He was very, I don't even know where to go with that, but he was a great guy. And he had a way about him of making you feel very comfortable in just hanging out kind of situations. But at the same time, he could take care of business and get very serious about it. But he accomplished a lot, especially when it came to Hugoville. Sorry, I'm not grabbing at nothing. It was a big dust particle.
That's okay.
But I expect to hear stories about people hanging out with him, drinking wine, partying with him, just sitting around and shooting the shit and having a good time. I mean, that's kind of what he was all about, at least in the realm of what he did within the band. Just people feeling comfortable around him and him and his ability to just like, he was working Hookahville. He was always working Hookahville when he was working it, but at the same time, he found time to, get his party on and go out and have a good time with everybody and make sure that everybody was feeling at home. I think that I'm hoping that there'll be a lot of people who come in that have not been to Hookahville in a while that are coming in just because they want to honor his memory. So for me, it's just going to be good to see some of those people again, not outside of even the stories about them or about their experiences with them. But I just expect, I expect a lot of people to be going, Hefe, as they're holding up probably a glass of wine, unless they're not wine drinkers, and, smoking and blowing it up to the heavens or whatever they believe they should do in his honor, and it's going to be real good to just have his, the presence of everybody else thinking about him there will be real nice. Because for the last, I don't know, handful of years, he's been coming. He didn't come for a while. And then he started coming to Hugoville again. And so he's been there. He's been, he's always been there. He's been at my campsite hanging out, and I see him every time. And it'll be hard to have this one and not see him. It really will be. But it'll be comforting having all these other people come.
I mean, it's interesting to me that at a music festival, you have things like this. I've seen people get married at Hookavilles. I've seen, people do memorial types of things at Hookavilles. And it really is an interesting community that you guys have built around the music. And I bet you that, it feels like when you talk about Hookahville, it's like, yeah, that's my festival too, right? Like people kind of take a little bit of ownership because it's their place.
Yeah,
When we think about
and they
60,
should.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you want people to take away from this Hookahville, right? In terms of just, a feeling or a thought. If you guys do your job, and you will, what do you want to leave people with?
I hope that people, what I always wanted from Hugoville, and I think it did get lost a little bit um, when it got really big. And what I always loved about early Hugovilles, and what I would like people to hopefully get here, is to leave knowing that it's about so much more than the music and so much more than acoustic hookah. That's not really what it's all about. It's I don't want to say that it's background music, or anything like that. But the early ones, it was all about, when we first started this, there was one night, there was maybe 4 bands the whole day. That was it. And then people hung out with each other. It was always like at least an hour or more between bands, so people could hang out with each other. You know what I mean? And festivals have gotten to the point, and I understand that, people love going to these huge festivals, and there's 150, 200 bands on the bill. There's something insane like that where, you can only watch so much music. Even if you're watching it 24/7, you can only see a small fraction of what's there. Um, that's not my thing. I don't want to listen to that much music personally. I would rather hear a band, go back to the campsite, chill out with my friends, meet some new people, get some food, get some drink, see another band, go hang out with some people, talk to people. It used to be a place where people knew they could go and they could hook up with all these people that they only saw twice a year. You know what I mean? And then when it got so big, I don't think there was as much of that hooking up with your friends. It was like you might see them, you didn't spend any time with them because you couldn't. It's just music, 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 music. Go to sleep. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
hope you get
yeah,
enough sleep for the music. Hookahville should be, in my mind, much more than the music. The music should be great always, not just us, but I mean, any band we have should be a great band, and they should, you should enjoy. Hopefully, people will enjoy everybody, but it's more than that. It's about hanging out. It's about community. And you mentioned that, like, the community that we built around the music. I think it's kind of the opposite. I think it's the community that you and everybody else who's been going has built around the music. Is the way I see it. It's
yeah,
not really us who built anything. All we did is, throw a party and say, buy a ticket and come in and do whatever you want. We didn't set up the community. That
yeah.
was that's an organic thing.
It's amazing too. Yeah, when you say that, I think about, like, sometimes I just like to walk around camp because you see the same campsites that have their own little creative touch. There's some weird flag or some decorations. You got folks like Kevin that always bring a gift for everybody, and they walk around just,
Mhm.
handing out mementos, and you get a collection of these things every year. So
Yeah.
that is one of my favorite things, is just walking around Tent City and seeing everybody having a good time, and chilling.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that some people, like I said, some people will show up. I'm sure I know some who are coming who haven't been to Hookahville in 20 years, or whatever. But it's not like they don't go to music festivals. They do. They go to them. They go to big festivals, which is great. But I'm hoping when they come back or come to this one that, they're like, wow, this is what I remember festivals being like, because that's what it started out as, and it being homey and feeling comfortable, and you don't have to walk, an hour to get to your car, and stuff like
yeah,
that. It's like there's something to be said for smaller. Another line that's in one of my songs, they say smaller can be better and less can be more. It all depends what you're searching for. And this is one of those things that I hope people get that. Nothing against big festivals. I mean, they're great in their own way, but Hookahville is always about something different than that. And I like that that's part of it. And I think that's what a lot of people like about it. When they say, you get people who are like, Hookahville is the best festival in the whole world, and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't want to say the level of talent, but the level of popularity of the talent for the last however many years has not been near what you get in these huge festivals. And I realize that. What they're saying about it is it's the best because of the community that you're talking about. That's what they're talking about, and that's what's really important, I think.
Yeah, it's an incredibly special place. It's something that we'll always have. Again, I love festivals, but Hookahville will always be very, very special to me. So I do thank
Yes.
you for what you guys did, right? Like it's pretty fucking cool. Uh,
I thank you.
so yeah, June 5th through the 7th, Roost on the River in Newark, Ohio. Tickets are still available for this. It's going to be all three eras of the band, plus a bunch of other bands, solo set from Ed. Definitely something that I am personally looking forward to, and I know everybody else who's going to watch this is also looking forward to it. So, yeah, thanks for doing this, and great job, man. Great job over the last 30 years.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll see how much longer I can continue doing it.
Nice. All right, cheers, man.
Take care. Thank you.
And that is all we have time for this week, neighbors. Super delighted to be able to talk with Dave. Again, somebody who has just been such a big musical influence on my life, my listening habits. So that was really cool. Make sure to come to Hookahville 60, June 5th through the 7th, Roost on the River Music Center in Newark, Ohio. Not only are you going to see all the eras of the band, but there's going to be a solo set from Ed McGee, the Whiskey Drinks, Zoo Trippin', Apostle Jones, Crispy's, Midnight Railroad, and the Groovy Roots are also playing. So you're definitely going to get your weekend of music, but you're also going to get that community feel and that vibe that we were talking about. Walk around camp, make some new friends, see some old friends, and just experience everything that is Hookahville, because it is a super unique, special place. You can book your passes at hookahville.com. And if you do go, come and say hello. I will be there, and I will have a special commemorative Hookahville 60 poker chip for you. I do these poker chips at festivals when I go. And make sure to look at the links in the show notes for all the different things we talked about and some videos and things I can find there. If you would like to win free tickets to Hookahville, our friend Jim Garibaldi from JSG Live has hooked us up with 2 complimentary 3-day general admission passes that also include primitive car camping, and the total is about $475 for that package. You can enter to win that if you go to musicfestivalspodcast.com, look at the very top in the navigation, and look for the tab that says Win Festival Tickets. Pretty fucking easy. Go to that page and you can enter that drawing there. All you have to do is fill out some information and then share some things on social media, and that's going to help the band out and get you a chance to get a free package of tickets for Hookahville. While you're there, you can also enter other festival ticket drawings. We have a package for Incarceration Music and Tattoo Festival, and that is happening July 18th through the 20th at the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, and also a package from the folks at All Good Presents. Super delighted to be able to offer this to you guys, but that is for the Trifesta. So this is a combination of 3 different festivals: Dark Star Jubilee happening at Legend Valley, All Good Now happening at the Meriwether Post Pavilion, and 4848 that is in one of my favorite places, Snowshoe Mountain in West Virginia. So make sure to enter all of those contests and see if you can win yourself some free festival tickets. You also, when you enter, you'll get access to our free email newsletter, and that is The Neighborhood. That comes out once weekly, and in that you're going to get things like festival news and announcements, more chances to win tickets and drawings, and also some cool discount codes from our partners, and those guys include Outdoorsy.com, Inikim Scooters, Melted Mind Designs, Cast Magic, Cap Cut, Opus Clip, and Hoem, and they're the ones that make that interesting little gimbal that you can use on your phone to get good video at these festivals. But thanks for tuning in. Next week, we are talking with Pickin' on Picnic, and that's going to be an interview with Ryan Kemp, who is the founder and promoter for that. They are in their 10th year this year, so I'm super excited to talk with those guys. But I do appreciate all of you who tune into this show. It's very cool that you're all into music festivals. If you do, please take a chance to go ahead and rate it wherever you're listening to it or watching it. And if you are listening to it, make sure to check out the YouTube channel as well. That's where you're going to get the video version of the show. I'm surprised that actually a lot of people are casting it up and watching it on their TVs, so that's kind of cool. But there's also a lot of videos there with full sets from festivals and some other cool interviews and different venue tours and things like that. So go ahead and check that out. But that is all I've got for you this week, folks. I am Neighbor Nate, and I hope to be your neighbor at a festival very soon. Hopefully it'll be at Hookahville 60.